The following is a paid program, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent the opinions of the management of this station or PAML Broadcasting, and the views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers of this program are solely their own. They do not represent or reflect the views, policies, or official position of ACA, its affiliates, or its staff. ACA does not endorse any statements made during this broadcast. This is 1 in 31, a presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 31 is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 31, the weekly broadcast on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism. And today I'm speaking with Jeremy Buzzell, who is the manager of the Park Accessibility for Visitors and Employees, which is a program, I think, affiliated with the National Park Service. And Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Well, great. Thank you for having me.
So we've been really I've been looking forward to this conversation because we've done various types of work and also just had experiences with National Park Services in our area in the Hudson Valley, but also beyond because thankfully this is an organization kind of known for a focus on inclusivity, accessibility, and I think recently there's been even more of an emphasis there. And we also live in a beautiful part of New York State where a lot of the individuals we serve get to enjoy the outdoors and what the parks have to offer as part of their just, recreational and programming. So I already feel somewhat connected, but I'm very excited to learn more about your specific work and the program that you're running. Why don't we start then with a little background on you? It's always good, I think, for our listeners to hear a little bit about, kind of your background, what got you into the work that you do now, if you have any personal or professional experience working with individuals with special needs, and kind of how did you get to today?
So there's a really good crossover here because I actually started out my career as a special education teacher.
Oh, cool.
And I specialized in students with autism.
Cool.
I did that for about 4 years in Massachusetts as well as in New York. And then I went back and got my graduate degree in a field called disability studies and was able to get a presidential management fellowship upon graduation, which basically means I sort of got a simplified way of entering federal service and started my job at the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education in the Office of Special Education Programs. So I worked at the Department of Education for close to 10 years. And that was really focused on supporting research around special education, supporting vocational rehabilitation, and spent a really long time focused on access to assistive technology for people with disabilities. And then I had the opportunity to spend about a year and a half with the Senate working on the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
Oh, okay.
When it was reauthorized in 2001, 2002-ish. And then eventually ended up being hired and being able to get off the ground a new office at the Transportation Security Administration, which was focused on security screening for people with disabilities so that we could not only ensure safety, but we could also make sure we are respecting people's dignity and civil rights. And that was at a time when we did a lot of work with groups representing folks with autism, doing like airport walkthroughs and practice sessions that were affiliated with the airlines. And so we have to prep and train the checkpoint people for how to screen appropriately and the questions to ask and understanding, touch sensitivity and noise sensitivity and a lot of the things that are associated with autism spectrum disorder. So that was my sort of initial foray into travel and disability.
Mhm.
And now I've been here at the National Park Service since 2014, and working in the national headquarters, trying to help parks be more accessible to people with disabilities.
That is a fantastic background. And like you said, I don't even know if you're aware, but there's a tremendous crossover because we have a consulting and training team that I think has done some work with national parks, but also has more recently consulted with the Port Authority and Newark Airport around those two pre and post security sensory safe spaces for travelers, and I think has had a little bit to do with training some of the airport staff in certain terminals around helping individuals with disabilities, specifically neurodivergent individuals and their families, have more access to travel opportunities in a way that supports their needs. So so awesome and so wild to me that you started where you started. I was gonna chuckle a little bit just when you said that you got that, the presidential opportunity, which is wonderful, and congratulations. But it's one of those things where you sort of get the opportunity to keep going to school, like to keep learning more, and then just being at the education department and working with IDEA and then TSA and travel. Um, I wasn't going to ask this, but I kind of have to because of your experience. Do you feel as though this is kind of, when you're working now, do you feel like, okay, this is where I was meant to be? This is where my trajectory was leading all the way? Or are you more the kind of person who's just like, I'm here now and this is what I'm doing and I'm open to whatever might come next, from this?
I feel like there have been way too many coincidences and doors opened, and just sitting down at a table at a conference talking to the right person. I've had too much of that happen to believe that this is all random, right? There's, if you get deep enough into the story, I could say like, well, from this job, I learned this and met this person.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
No,
that
I
person
have
this,
a
that
very
thing, et
similar
cetera, right?
story.
So yeah, and I would tell you this is, for me as a person who has always really liked the outdoors and really been into history and travel, like this is the jackpot of jobs, right? To combine, uh, being able to support an organization with the kind of mission the Park Service has, which I'm, fully invested in, and everyone who works here is fully invested in, with a passion that I have around accessibility,
Mhm.
and to kind of know what I'm talking about when I show up.
Yeah.
It's great. It's kind of like I would agree. It's like kismet.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And I can relate to those. I always tell people who ask about my career, if they ask advice, I always say just say yes unless there's some really specific reason why it's a really bad idea. But otherwise, when the doors have opened, it's sort of saying yes to things where I'm going, really? That I don't, didn't see that one coming. But then it all kind of comes together. Another question that might, I hope you answer, but feel free if you don't feel comfortable. Um, I grew up in a family of very outdoorsy people. I was not necessarily the most outdoorsy in my family. I preferred sort of other activities, but I definitely grew up in a family where a massive part of our leisure time was spent out in the woods, hiking, um, doing overnights. Most of our family vacations were camping trips, canoeing trips. Did you grow up with a lot of outdoors in your life, and or or a sense that somehow you wanted more, but there were obstacles to that? Is that a part of your like a person, part of your personal life that you also get to enjoy in this position?
Yeah, I spent a significant chunk of my childhood in Asheville, North Carolina, like right
Beautiful.
the footsteps of Blue Ridge Parkway.
Mm.
And as hokey as it might sound, that was an era in which my friends and I would just go off and play in the woods
Yeah.
for, half of the day. And, I had friends who would take me camping with them, or we'd go float, down a river in air tubes. So yeah, it was a very, it was that sort of, that was my introduction to the wilderness and the outdoors and what kind of pleasure and bonding it can provide. And that, that never loses its magic, because we have so many places in the Park Service that, they're unique in the entire world.
Oh yeah, it's
So
amazing when you actually look at the list. It's really amazing. That's cool. I just that was the way these conversations usually go is somebody says something and it just kind of gets me off on a tangent. But I like to put in context some of what we're going to talk about in the next part of the conversation, by way of helping myself and our listeners learn a little bit more about where you started, where you came from. So you've got this incredible combination of kind of government, probably quite a bit of regulatory experience, understanding where the boundaries are, where the paperwork has to be, which is important, because if you're going to try to get new programs off the ground and supported, you really can't just approach it with I've got a great idea. I think we all understand that there's a lot of other factors that go into setting something up so that it's sustainable. And so I think between that background and then your personal background of, the appreciation for the outdoors and what it does, I'm gonna lead us into a break, and then when we come back, I'm gonna ask you to just kind of talk completely about the program you're running and why it's important. But I'll end this segment with this, which is this podcast. I think what we really want to do is we want to use it to showcase the multitude of opportunities that are accessible to most, or even many, but not necessarily fully accessible to all. And when you think about enjoying the outdoors and enjoying all of the things that the national parks have to offer, and the idea that there are people still today, children and adults, or entire family groups, school groups, that cannot, for various reasons, easily access what has been such a prominent part of our country, and our culture, it's upsetting. And so I always like to take out the opportunity to highlight the opportunities that are there that people may not know about. So that's what I'm excited about for the second half of the show. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with Jeremy Buzzell, manager of the Park Accessibility for Visitors and Employees program. Jeremy, this is 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder, and we will be right back.
And now 1 in 31 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs presentation from the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 31, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky from Anderson Center for Autism, and I'm talking today with Jeremy Buzzell about, so far, a multitude of things, mainly your background, which I find fascinating. But we're going to jump right into the job you have now, which is being the manager of the Park Accessibility for Visitors and Employees, otherwise known as PAVE. I always love a good acronym. We all know that in our lines of work, we have a lot of acronyms. So when you get a fun one that works, you want to lean into that. So Jeremy, tell us about this program. What is it, and how did it come to exist?
So there has always been some group within the Park Service that has focused on accessibility in many permutations over the years. Back in 2014, I was hired because the Park Service had developed a strategic plan for improving accessibility, a 5-year strategic plan, and it called for somebody to come on board with the requisite expertise and to help usher that plan through. So that's when I started, and obviously I've stayed ever since. Primarily, our program does technical assistance to parks or training. If you think about what a park exists for, if it's a park that has caves, they're hiring people who are experts in caves, right? They are not hiring people who are experts in accessibility. So it's sort of combining our knowledge and their knowledge when they say, hey, how would we make this more accessible to people with disabilities? So there's a lot of it that is problem solving with a park. In a lot of cases, it is connecting them with the disability community that's local or sometimes national organizations. It's a lot of trying to overcome barriers that exist in the natural world, to see if we can't make things, if not totally accessible as possible.
That's very clear, and it makes perfect sense to me. So thank you for that. The cave example is a great one, and you could probably come up with lots more. And I think that that's something that we see as, certainly from my perspective, when I see what our Anderson Consulting and Training group does. They consult with lots of different entities. It could be for whole municipalities, individual school districts, directly with families. But a lot of times when they're working with emergency responders or businesses, business owners, it's exactly that. You want to combine in the most sort of symbiotic way possible the expertise in one particular type of business. And in this case, it's, parks, and they're the various things that are, at the parks, with how do you make it more accessible. And what I love about that relationship when I see it working is that actually typically the outcome is it gets to be a better, more accessible experience for everyone, not just the particular group of people you might start by focusing in on. What typically, and I wonder what you think about, have you had experiences where you see something where the focus is initially on an autistic or neurodivergent population, or maybe something else, maybe more of a physically disabled population, but the outcome is actually just better for the general public?
So our office does actually preach the gospel of universal design, and trying to say that the things that we do, that we design for people with disabilities, are going to benefit everyone. A great example that we do a lot of tactile models for individuals who have vision disabilities, so that they can have a better sense of the environment or the monument or whatever it is that you're there to see. And if you go to a park and they have those, the first people you're going to see are kids without disabilities, right? With their hands on them, touching things, learning things. I have gone to parks and seen groups of adults with no children anywhere also using the tactile models as part of their experience, right?
Mhm.
I also tend to tell all of our parks when we work with them, we are not creating accessibility for someone else. You are creating accessibility for future you. Because
Right.
someday, when you have a difficult time hearing or seeing or being mobile, and you want to visit a park, you're going to be really appreciative of the things that were put in place 20, 25 years ago
Mhm.
to make that journey that much easier for you.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, and a really nice entree point into working with the staff who kind of have to get on board with this, and making it really personal to them. And I agree with you. I think I hadn't thought about that until you said it, but now I'm visualizing that yes, people gravitate sometimes towards whatever just feels right without recognizing I'm looking for this. But also, one of the things that's great about those visual opportunities and tactile opportunities is that sometimes it's just about trying something new. And having a different way to engage with whatever the environment that you're in. So I think that that's a really important aspect. Can you talk about, was there a project or a certain, you don't have to name the park if you don't want to, but was there a certain project that you've worked on that was especially challenging for whatever, any reason that you can think of?
Well, I will tell you, just as a general rule, the biggest challenge we have is creating a balance between preservation and accessibility.
Okay, makes sense.
I have yet to run across any person who works in the park service that doesn't want things to be accessible. But the other part of our mission is make sure that we preserve nature the way it is, make sure that we preserve a historic building the way it is. So it's always that tension that we work on and try to problem solve. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, that makes the job exciting. No 2 days are the same. Every park is different, so we can't have one, "Oh, hey, if you need access to a beach, you just do it this way." Well, depends on the kind of beach, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, that is one of the greatest area of friction that we have.
Mhm.
Um, But that again is why we would bring in folks from the disability community, because we assume they also want the things to be preserved, right? Like they don't
Right.
want everything to be paved necessarily, because they also want to get out into the woods and have a natural experience, for example.
Right, right. So you actively engage with various members of the disability community, probably both professionals, but also individuals with disabilities, to gain their perspective on the work that you're doing?
Our goal is to, in a way, put ourselves out of business as a technical assistance and training provider for
Oh,
parks.
okay.
What we would rather do is we would rather get a park connected with its local disability community or, a state organization, that they can build an ongoing relationship with, so that when they need advice or help solving a problem, they don't call me. They call this disability organization that they have a relationship with and say, hey, can you help us solve our problem?
Mhm,
Because a lot of these parks are people's local park, right?
mhm.
So we want that kind of
Yeah.
perspective on. So yeah, that is a thing we emphasize. We do a lot of outreach to the disability community. We tend to do it at the national level so that if an organization has chapters, we are able to then go, oh, okay, this park has this problem. There's a chapter of this organization in the state. Let's get you all connected and get you all at the table together, so that, nothing about us without us, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that makes perfect sense. And plus, it's just, it to me is a sustainable model. Whether you actually ever do put yourselves out of business, you're creating and empowering more people to work with municipalities who are also becoming more empowered to even just listen, and be open to change. So I think that's great. So you're working at the federal level. Do you travel frequently? Are you at these various locations, or are you making those introductions and connections from kind of a central hub?
It's a combination. It really depends on the nature of the work or what needs to happen at a park. There are plenty of times that we do it all remotely. There are other times that we need a team out on the ground because you simply can't understand the challenge or provide helpful solutions, without being there to see it yourself. I would say one of the things, this will be a callback to what you said earlier, is one of the reasons we go out to parks a lot is because we are really emphasizing, getting the parks to put better information about their accessibility on their
Yes.
websites.
Yeah.
And because we have had for too long, in my opinion, a deficit model where we're going to focus on what is not accessible rather than doing a good job of advertising what is accessible, right?
Mhm. Sure.
Um, and we've got programs across the country at national parks that focus on people with autism spectrum disorder. But we don't have a place where it's all organized. That if you are a family, you could say, "Oh, let's find places with programs and go there." It's more of an interaction of decided we want to go to this place
Yeah.
and see what they've got.
What do they have? Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and often we don't do a good job of advertising what we have. So our team does a lot of work like that, going out to parks and
Mhm.
looking at them and figuring out, okay, how would we be able to say this on a website in a way that resonates with people with disabilities, and helps them understand what to expect.
Yeah.
And that ties directly into, again, the experience at TSA, where it's, oh, if I know what to expect going through a checkpoint or on a plane, it makes it that much easier.
Exactly.
So we want to make sure people know what to expect, people know where to go for things that are accessible, uh, and more importantly, like, they know to ask, right? They know to go in the visitor
Yeah.
center and be like, "Oh, hey, do you have this or that or the other thing?"
Absolutely. I can see a number of already wheels are turning in my head about things that could be brought together, different resources to help underscore what you're talking about, which is the creation of an experience or a vacation or a day trip that is proactive as opposed to reactive. Well, we're here, or we've got the tickets, or everyone else wants to go, so now we have to figure out how to support the individual in our party, in our family, who needs some extra support. So I think that's, it sounds like incredible work. Unfortunately, we have to finish up, but I want to give you a chance to put out, is there a website right now where you'd encourage people to go to learn more about what you're doing?
So there are a few things that I would recommend there is an interagency America the Beautiful pass, which basically gets you free admission to all of the national parks if you or a member of your family, who is a dependent, have a disability.
Okay, great.
So that is something where I would tell anybody, if they can do a Google search for America the Beautiful National Park Pass and
Okay.
come on. Also, what we have is we have our own site on the National Park Service main website. And it's actually got a map of the United States, and it shows each of the parks. And if you click on the little dot that represents the park, it will take you directly to their web page that's about accessibility, because every park is required to have a web page about accessibility.
Great.
So that is where and there is a section in there that talks about what they may or may not have available for individuals who have intellectual cognitive disabilities, et cetera. So I recommend those two things. And we are at nps.gov/subjects/accessibility.
All right.
The third thing is, honestly, anyone who wants to find out more information, they can email accessibility@nps.gov. That goes to our entire team. Generally, we can't answer a question about a specific park, but we're good at finding the people who can answer.
Yeah.
We're creating that direct connection if anybody wants it. So we encourage people who are looking for more information or assistance to email us at accessibility@nps.gov.
That's great. I'm going to repeat those real quick. So the first thing that you can do to learn more is to Google maybe not this, but Google America the Beautiful National Park Pass, which sounds like a great resource. Also visit the National Park Service website at nps.gov/subjects/accessibility. And the third thing would be to email accessibility@nps.gov, where you'll probably get your question passed to the person who can best answer it for you. Jeremy, this has been really eye-opening, and I'm thrilled to learn more about PAVE, Park Accessibility for Visitors and Employees, but also you, and that just as somebody with your breadth of knowledge and clearly your passion and enthusiasm for what you do is out there, really supporting and advocating for all people, and especially for people with special needs to enjoy the national park. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today, and thank you for what you do.
Great. It was an honor to be here, and I'm glad to be able to create awareness, because we find one of the greatest barriers is often attitudinal. So
You're paving the way. We knew we had to work that. We're paving the way to change the attitude.
High hopes. So
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. This is 1 in 31, the weekly podcast related to autism spectrum disorder. Thank you so much again, Jeremy Buzzell. And remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 31, a weekly presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. Join them for another edition of the show next weekend.